Good evening, everyone. Lovely to be with you. Yes. So I'd like just to share something that has recently come to me. So this year I'm going to start teaching more retreats. I'm going to try to do one every 2 or 3 months. And I'm feeling this new fire, this new light and clarity and grace that's coming online. And we have an opportunity here to join together as a Sangha, to grow, to truly awaken, to truly do something extraordinary. And so there's a little bit of a challenge from me to you, maybe actually quite a challenge from me to you. Of will you join me in this? Now, we could just be pretty casual and kind of hang back and kind of stumble along the path, just see what happens. Or we could hear the call of grace, the call of evolution, the call for something greater. And so I invite you to join me in this. So there's a retreat coming up March 3rd. And I'll probably do one, sometime after that as well. And sometime after that, there'll be a retreat in July, an in-person retreat at the Kripalu Institute. The retreat is really where the rubber meets the road. It's really an incredible opportunity to stand in the grace, to stand in your truth, the truth, to embody what you are, what you're meant to be, what you've always been, but perhaps did not know. And so I'm going to invite you to join me in this. I can say that I personally feel as if I was in a cloud of heaviness the last couple of years, just from having COVID and the difficulty that created in my life. And sometimes God gives us this, as God will give us an illness and give us a bunch of karma to burn through this illness. I felt like I was burning my karma. I felt like I was burning some of the Sangha's karma, and I felt like some of the collective karma. And now I feel something great is beginning to give birth, and I'm just beginning to get just little bits of it. Little bits of this greater truth that are coming online, and I can feel a different type of pressure coming from God, coming from the Divine Mother, inviting and invoking something greater within me, and of course, that'll be shared here. If we rise to the occasion, if we rise to the occasion. And so it's an invitation, but also it's a challenge, but even more so, it's a gift. And I can remember when I was with my teacher, there would just be these periods where we'd kind of float along and plateau. And then all of a sudden, there'd be something new, something heavier, deeper, truer, fuller that would come forward right about the time I started to get a little bit lazy on the path. This new grace would come into the room, and I'd say, oh boy, there's something here. There's something here. So anyways, I'm going to invite you to join me in that. And so please, love to have you on the retreat, but also I'd love to have you at all these meetings. Some of you come to all 3 each week. Some of you show up to 2, and that's wonderful. And I will also, invite you just to extend this invitation to a friend or someone you know or someone close to you. and to share these teachings. Yesterday I had this funny experience. I was with my little girl, and well, we just had a really busy weekend. And my little girl, she kind of got sick, and we were all feeling kind of fried. But there was this gathering at her school, and there was mass before. There was mass, and then afterwards there was like this little school carnival, for all the kids to play, and we didn't make it to mass. And I had this funny experience of like we were just all so tired and we needed to rest, and so we all kind of had a rest, and then we showed up to the carnival just a couple minutes early. But the majority of the people were still in mass. Like the way it worked is they were going to go to mass and then the carnival afterwards. And so we were sitting there like outside of the church, waiting for, the priest to cut everybody loose and for the carnival to begin. And there was just this feeling within me that something great was going on inside that building. And this feeling like I'm missing out. And there's one thing that I never, ever want to miss out on. And that's the direct experience of grace. Anytime there's an experience to be, deep in it, I want to be deep in it. I want to be inside the church. I don't want to be outside the church. And so, I'm going to invite you to be on the inside and to see what comes. See what comes over this next year. See what begins to take root and take birth within you. And so, I'm curious. I'm curious because, in a sense, God brought this to me, this light, and this pressure, and this, I can just feel something new is mixing. And so I'm curious what it is. And so for tonight's teaching, I'd like to speak about just the first line of the Sermon on the Mount. The first line, I'm going to pull it up here. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And this is such a bizarre line. Like sometimes Jesus would say these things, and I was always like, what the heck does he mean? Like, blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Now, on this spiritual path, often we want to be full of spirit. But I can tell you this funny thing that happens with me as a teacher is sometimes, occasionally, a student will come to me or somebody new will come to me and they will be full. They will be full of Buddhism. They'll be full of, yogic training. They'll have all the lingo down. They'll be full of knowledge. They'll be full of all their spiritual experiences, and they can list them off. They'll be full of dogma. They'll be full of, we all know this, full of ego. And when we're full of ego, it's very hard to receive the kingdom of heaven. And so this evening, I'd like us just to imagine that we're starting new, that we're starting fresh, that we are starting blank, that we are poor in spirit, that we're not all filled up with all our spiritual ideology and our dogma. And the mind, it plays this game. Our human self plays this game of possessiveness. It's one of the ways our egoic nature solidifies itself, is through knowing what it owns. And if you've ever had this experience, let's have some fun, having your car stolen. Have you ever had the experience of having your partner stolen, your boyfriend, girlfriend, or your lover stolen? There's something that happens. If you lose your purse, you lose your wallet. I know one that probably everyone's had now. Doesn't have to be so dramatic. You lose your phone. And when people lose their phone, like in this modern age, it can be this feeling of anxiety and disorientation. Like I feel completely disoriented. I don't have my phone. I don't have my phone. I've lost my possession. If you ever have, you hold on to like a thought pattern, one of the things that's happened in this last year is, many of us have had, let's say 3 or 5 years, we might have had a particular news agency that we are aligned with, a political party we were aligned with. And perhaps in the last couple of years, like that news agency that we always went to, we found out that it was lying to us. That our political party was lying to us. There's this feeling of being disoriented. And in that disorientation, like if we look at it directly, is this feeling of letting go. I mean, really, it's a feeling of loss. Something's taken from us. But as we open and accept and begin to let go, then there is space for something new and something great to come online. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. So when we show up empty, we can receive, there's the possibility to receive the kingdom of heaven. When we show up full, all-knowing, when we're too smart, when we know better, it's very hard to receive. And again, I'll just say this with a smile. It's very interesting that sometimes people pay, a good deal of money to meet with me. And they show up full. They're not wanting to hear anything. I think sometimes people want me to pat them on the back and tell them that they are enlightened or they're great or they're doing it right. And, it's okay to want a little acknowledgement on the path. Nothing wrong with that, but there's a better way to spend our time together than to show up and to know everything. To know everything. And one of the ways, like I was saying before, that the ego builds itself up is through filling itself with its possessions. And we can try to fill ourselves with a lover. We can try to fill ourselves with a car, a certain type of car. Like I'm always curious when I see someone spend, like $100,000 on a car. I'm always like, who is that person? Like, not because I find them impressive, but because it's like who would do that? Like, who would spend so much on that car? Like, what does that car do for them? What does it do for them? And so our ego, it possesses, like one of the great things it likes to possess, besides material things, It likes to possess thoughts. Thoughts. It likes to possess emotions. So it says, these are my thoughts, these are my feelings. And through claiming these thoughts and feelings, we are no longer poor in spirit. We are full of egoic pride or egoic anger, egoic judgment. We're full of political belief, religious belief, dogmas. We're full of concepts. And if one wants to experience, like the Buddha taught, non-conceptual awareness, like how are we going to do that if our mind is already full? How will I experience non-conceptual awareness? How will I experience the kingdom of heaven? If I'm full of anger or envy, jealousy, judgment, righteousness. If you look inside and you see that there's a long list of people that disturb you, that you don't like, a long list of people. That some people, it's funny, they turn on the news and the news tells them who they're not supposed to like. So some news stations will tell you right now to really like Dr. Fauci and really trust him. And others will tell you, don't like him. Others will tell you to really trust Pfizer. And then others, don't trust Pfizer. Really trust Donald, or really trust Joe, or really trust, or don't trust them. Like don't trust them. We're just going to hate this person. We're going to hate this party. We're going to hate. We're going to dislike. We're going to judge. We're going to be against, completely against the police, or completely for the police. But who is willing to be empty? To be empty, to be poor in thoughts, poor in emotional reactivity. Who is willing to step back and let the truth present itself to you directly? Let the kingdom present itself to you directly. Now, this last year, last 2 years, because I had so much struggle with my body. Spent a lot of time in bed, a lot of time with fatigue. I felt pummeled by God, just pummeled by life. But it gave me a tremendous amount of time to reflect upon that which is true, that which is false. It gave me a tremendous amount of time to reflect upon if I can open further still to the grace and the intelligence of God. It gave me a tremendous amount of time to look at how I treat myself, how I treat my body, how I treat others, and what can be improved upon. And so it's a funny thing when we don't know, don't know what's supposed to happen or why something is. It gives us an opportunity to be silent and to open to a greater truth and something that's given to us through our social media or something you see on the internet. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And so this is a great question for us. I invite you all, why don't we do this? Why don't we close our eyes for a moment? And just notice, like, am I rich with anger, rich with judgment, rich with hatred? Am I rich in unworthiness? And is that the truth? Is it the truth to be rich in these things? Or would we rather be poor in unworthiness and rich in happiness, rich in openness, rich in compassion, rich in love? And so as we breathe in and as we breathe out, I invite you to look at all the concepts that you hold in your mind. How much space the spiritual concepts take up, righteous concepts take up, political concepts take up. I invite you to look at the things you know and to ask yourself, do I really know this should or shouldn't be? Do I really know what I think I know? And would I be willing this year to surrender some of which I think I know, some of which I claim to know, so that something greater can come forward? Would I be willing to surrender all the things I think I know, and to allow God, allow life to show me the truth? And as you breathe more deeply, I invite you to feel into your body and just notice your emotional nature. Some of us are rich in self-hatred. Now, this is a wild one. This is a wild one. To be rich in self-hatred. When we are rich in self-hatred, it's very hard for God to enter us. When we're rich in judgment of others, very hard for God to enter. Can we be poor? Are we willing to be poor in the realm of, say, self-hatred? Perhaps rich in self-love. Rich in self-love. Am I willing to put down my opinions of myself, my judgments of myself, the harshness of how I treat my own self? And so I invite you all to look at this. Look at how your ego possesses, how it holds on to judgment of oneself or judgment of others. And are we willing to let go of this? Are we willing to be empty? Now, for some of us, when we begin to see this, when it comes into the light, it may cause such a great pain that it could be helpful to grieve. Like, that's part of the letting go process, is grieving, like actively acknowledging, my gosh, how hard we've been on ourselves or to others. Can we soften this? Can we soften and let it all empty out? Whether it empties out with tears or shaking or just the swift, vibrant sword of awareness that can just cut through it and be like, oh yeah, like I don't need to be so hard on myself. I don't need to be so full of my thoughts about how life should be, how others should be. And if we circle back to the realm of dogma, I invite you to look and see, does dogma get in the way? Does my dogma get in the way of me actually experiencing, if you actually experience it, one actually experiencing the direct truth of grace, of love, of compassion? Like, is my head, my mind, my emotional nature full of dogma? And am I willing to surrender this dogma so I may begin to experience a causeless contentment, a causeless joy, a causeless freedom? Often when we have dogma, we think that our spiritual experiences are caused by how tightly we hold on to our religious beliefs or morals or values, how tightly we hold on to scripture. But if we want to know causeless contentment, we must first be empty. Empty. And so I invite you all just to imagine just a giant eraser, a divine eraser coming through and allowing all the possessions of ego to begin to dissolve. To begin to dissolve. Now, some people take this teaching the wrong way. When they hear about the possessions of the ego, they think they need to sell their car and give it away, and give away their clothes and give away all their money in their bank account. And I've had a number of people actually try to give me their full retirement accounts, and I always laughed. I was like, geez, like, don't do that. don't give me your retirement account. How will you live? How will you live when you're old? Like, my God, don't do that. Don't do that. Like, God doesn't really care about the material, the physical material. What God cares about is the psychic material that you hold on to. This is the thing that needs to be surrendered. If there is self-hatred, we must surrender this. We must find the one who's hating and meet him with love, meet her with love. Hold them, embrace them. We must do that which is different than hatred. Hatred has the energy of wanting to light someone on fire. And I'm inviting you to instead to go hug them. And that one, if it's self-hatred, that's you hugging you, you loving you, you being compassionate toward you. being compassionate toward you, forgiving toward you. Forgiving for the fact that God made you human. God gave you a human mind. And so I ask another question. What would life be like if you gave up all wanting within the mind, within the emotional nature? What would life be like? And again, I'm not so much talking about the physical stuff, but it's the wanting life to be different, wanting ourselves to be different, wanting our partner to be different, wanting our child to be different, wanting this moment to be different. What if we gave ourselves permission to be poor in the realm of wanting? Then began to see what comes. See what comes. Just see what comes. Well, I had this funny experience. I had it both yesterday and today. I was wanting there to be no snow on my roof. I've got an old kind of leaky roof, and like I said, I was pretty tired yesterday. Just had a full day, and you know, here in Colorado, you can want the snow to be gone, but that's not going to make it to be gone. And so reality was telling me I had to get up on that roof. And so I got up on the roof, and I had this funny experience of, I stood up on the roof and I slipped like 4 or 5 times just within a minute. And I had this wonderful experience of slipping and continuing to slip and continuing to slip. And I noticed that there was just this pure state of silence while I was slipping and falling. And in the past, you know, there had been, you know, a little bit of egoic fear, or maybe some cursing, like, you know, oh shit, I'm gonna fall off the roof. But there wasn't any of that. And I was, you know, again, like, I was shocked. I just noticed. I was like, oh. And I don't think I even noticed until after the fact that there was just so much silence in this experience of me slipping and slipping and slipping. It's a very humbling thing. And I could have fallen and broken, you know, both my legs or something, but you know, that did not happen. Instead, I just fell into this state of deep peace, a deep peace, a profound peace. And I came down the ladder because I realized, oh yeah, I'm not going to be able to stay on this roof. And my house has a bunch of different roofs. And so today I went up on a different roof, and I was shoveling away, and you know, the beautiful thing about being up on a roof is you get this vast view, the big blue sky, you know, the supreme emptiness and expansiveness of creation. It often comes and gets me when I'm on a roof. You know, it intoxicates me. And that's always a lovely experience, to be, you know, doing some really hard, you know, physical labor. I was hammering away with a rubber mallet, breaking up ice. the valleys of my roof, and sometimes the sky will begin to awaken within me again, begin to expand within me again. If I was up there complaining the whole time, if I was rich and complaining, I wouldn't be able to have this most holy experience of divinity. And so it's a great question, a great inquiry for us to look into. Is what do we possess in our mind? What do we hold on to? Attachment's a different type of word for this, but I'm liking the word possess today. But sometimes, there's that old saying, like the things you possess, is that they possess you. In the realm of the mind, if we possess all kinds of beliefs, those beliefs possess us. They fill and they even pollute our consciousness. As if one begins to look at their consciousness and experience their consciousness when one is empty, we notice that our consciousness is made of light, made of space, made of a radiant love. If we allow ourselves to be ridiculously empty, we may begin to experience ourselves as a radiant darkness, the pure potential of all life, the beginning and the end and everything in between, as this pure radiant darkness out of which all of life is born. Now, many, many years ago, I used to do this chant. Can't remember what the chant was called. That's because I'm poor of spirit. Because I'm so empty. But I think it was the Prajna Paramita chant. I think that's what it was called. It might have been called something different, but pregnant with all phenomena. And if I was a good Buddhist scholar, I'd know all the words of the chant and be able to recite them. And they'll say there's Sanskrit words and the Sanskrit meanings and all this type of thing. But I would rather be poor in the realm of dogma and rich in the realm of direct experience. And so, like I invited in the beginning, I want us to imagine tonight, this day, that we start new again, that we start fresh on the spiritual path, letting go of that which we think we know, and giving ourselves permission to see life as new, as fresh, to see the kingdom of heaven, hear all about the earth, to see it, to experience it, to live it, to know the kingdom within oneself. Within oneself. Most of us, when we look inside, we don't like what we see. But when you're poor in the realm of concepts, you're poor in the realm of judgment, you're poor in the realm of emotion, when you look inside, you see the kingdom of heaven. vast, radiant, dark, spacious light. And so anyways, I think that's a good place to start. Now, someone wrote me these questions, and my God, are these questions just absolutely what this talk is about. You know, someone came to me, some like deeply philosophical questions, and I would almost like to not touch them, but to just give them right back to the questioner and say, what would your life be like if you were poor in the realm of dogma, poor in the realm of knowledge? Like sometimes it's important for us to look at, like if our mind is very intellectual, one of the things that it can be helpful to look at is this mind, is this intellect, is it a gift? Like, is that what it is? Or is it, I'm gonna do a silly metaphor. Today, it started to warm up a little bit. And so if any of you know about motorcycles and motorcycle health, like if you leave gas in a motorcycle, you know, for more than 3 months, it'll start to clog up the carburetor and this and that. And so if you have any kind of small gasoline engine, it's good to run them in the winter just a little bit to burn off some of the gas, keep the battery working and everything. And there's this thing on a carb called a choke. And the choke, what it does is it like opens the airflow one way or another. And it revs the engine really loud. And so, you know, I had the choke open, and the bike was just running like really loud. And so with our intellect, is our intellect like a motor? Is our mind like a motor with the choke open, just running, busy, racing, always trying to stay ahead, always trying to have one thought after the next, filling up the space. Sometimes people come to me and they want to tell me every detail of their life story. So it is not necessary to fill the space with all these details. I think you're coming here to be loved, to see the truth, not to get all the details of the story right. But sometimes our mind does this out of a state of insecurity. It holds on to facts, like I want to line up all the facts of my argument to prove that you are wrong, that you are wrong. We've all probably played this game before where we just listed off all the things wrong with the other person. We have all the facts. And, you know, again, it's a funny game. It's a funny game when our mind is spinning so much on the spiritual path. And when I was young, God gifted me with one of those types of minds. As I got older, that mind stopped working, became much more spacious, much more empty, to the point that sometimes I appear disabled to some folks. So this person's writing, Craig, I'm wanting to continue a bit of our previous exchanges. I can't find exactly what I've said, but the following comes to mind. I'm guessing you've read some of the go-to materials on Kundalini guru lineages, mantras, pranayama, etc. I'm curious what you think about the Sadguru, the importance of lineage, the guru mantra, darshan, chanting, seva, etc.? Do you see it as outdated, unnecessary, misguided, or advanced? How do you see your role and where you're at as someone who specializes in Kundalini? Like, do you see yourself as fulfilling the role of a traditional Kundalini guru, only in a different way, or more like a spiritual friend and support, or both? Again, like, this is beautifully worded questions, very eloquent. But what I'm curious about is, where does this question come from? What's at the root of this question? What is at the root of this question? And do we think that our mind is going to be able to figure out the best way forward? Like, it's not a bad thing to use your mind to try to discern, like, what's the best way forward here? Like, what's the best way forward? That's what our mind wants to know. It's like, what's going to be the best way? Like, tell me what the best way is. Or tell me what you think, Mr. Craig, guru figure. Like, tell me what you think. Tell me where you stand. Tell me where you stand on this thing. Tell me where you stand. And so I can respond. I'll give you my stance on this. Like, Kundalini is a movement of God giving birth in you. And Kundalini is an intelligent force. This is a force of God. It's a force of creation. And that force will move through you in a unique way, an intelligent way, a way that's greater than any pranayama breath that I will give you, greater than any mantra that I would offer. See what else is in here. Greater than any lineage. Greater than anything that was written down by some yogi 2,000 years ago. If I want to know what Kundalini is doing, I ask it. If I want to know what God is doing, I ask God. I don't ask a book. I don't ask a guru. And so my job is to help you look at your direct experience and see, what is the experience telling you? What is it showing you? How is it giving birth in you? And then I just look at a very basic thing. Kundalini is an energy. It's an energy that wants to move. It wants to flow. And I look at a very basic way. What's in the way? Now, almost always, it is psychological defensiveness. Now, no mantra is going to cut through psychological defensiveness. No pranayama is going to cut through psychological defensiveness. Mantras and pranayama, they can move energy temporarily. But if you have a veil within your consciousness, and I don't care if we're talking about Kundalini or not, you have any veil in your consciousness, anything in the way, wherever that veil is, like if you have the veil of unworthiness, the Kundalini is going to have a hard time. God is going to have a hard time piercing, coming into, inhabiting the cave of the heart. If we have fear in our belly, there's going to be tremendous difficulty in the Kundalini actually inhabiting the belly. If you have fear in the belly, there's going to be a couple things that happen. And God has to turn up the light there, and it's a good chance you'll have, let's have some fun here in the realm of Kundalini, digestive problems, burping problems. Sometimes people come to me and they burp a lot. They have tremendous digestive problems. in their belly. Why is that? It's because of fear. Because there's fear there in their belly. It's unresolved trauma. And this light of Kundalini is trying to wake up in the belly. But it cannot, because there's fear there, there's panic, there's gripping, there's holding, there's defensiveness, there's guardedness. Now, I have yet to read an ancient Kundalini book that talks about any of this. Ancient Kundalini texts often talk about, all these very specific channels and mantras and this and that, and doing this thing and that thing. Standing on your head, holding your nose, doing alternate nostril breathing. It's like, my God, one of the things that happens when we go see a guru and they tell us to meditate a certain way and do this for the next 6 months, it's not so much that whatever technique it is that they taught us helps us to move the energy. It's that we meditated for 6 months. At some point during that 6 months, maybe we learned to love ourselves, forgive ourselves, be kind to ourselves, surrender the veil, just surrender, give up from a place of exhaustion, and let something greater move through. Perhaps during the next 6 months, we learn to trust in the energy of grace instead of the energy of our mind. Maybe the mantra is just the trick, just the trick to get your consciousness out of the intellect, to get it out of the intellect. So what do I see myself as? This is a funny question. There are times I present as a friend. There are times I present as a guru. There are times that I present as the voice of your own heart. I never know what's going to come. I just show up as an empty conduit, as an empty vessel. Like sometimes people just want me to show up and be a friend. And it's like, okay, like that's what's happening right now. But I don't have any fixed sense of self, some fixed identity. Kundalini guru. I'd have a hard time calling myself that, but it seems like that's what I do all day long. It seems like that's what happens all day long. There's something here, and I can tell you there's something here that's great. I'm not going to claim it as myself, but I'll say there's something here that's great. And yes, there's a whole lineage behind it that's connected mostly to these great South Indian saints. And yeah, there's a whole thing behind it. But again, the more we play that game and the more we get into that dance, then it very quickly becomes dogma. And I don't want anything to do with dogma. I don't want anything to do with, claiming some solidity of lineage and this and that, because things get weird and strange and cultish. And again, all of this is places where we can get our identity wrapped around. I show up and I'm whatever the moment requires of me, asks of me. Sometimes that's a father. In a funny way, a big part of this lineage is this is a mother lineage. Sometimes I show up as a mother, so how does that work? Sometimes I show up as a brother. I show up in support of you. Sometimes it shows up as fierceness, sometimes as kindness. But again, in this moment, I invite you to look, where do these questions come from? What are we trying to do here? Are we trying to control the process through knowing? And I hope we fail at that. Because this process, it can't be controlled. That's one of the great things Kundalini has taught me. This awakening has taught me. The more you try to control, the more fully you'll be in your egoic nature. That's the number one thing that gurus try to teach in the realm of Kundalini is control. I do the opposite. I invite a path of trust, a path of faith, a path of love and compassion, a path of looking at your shadow, because that's probably where you're veiled. Well, not probably, that's definitely where you're veiled. You know? If there's a shadow there, there's a veil there. If there's a veil there, the light of grace, the light of the divine cannot flow through you. And so I invite us to look and see, are we cooperating with the energy, the intelligence of the energies of awakening? Or are we fighting with them? We're trying to outsmart them. We're trying to control them. Or are we trying to force them up one channel as opposed to another? You know, sometimes the Kundalini needs to go off to the right or to the left. So it needs to work on something within us. It needs to burn off some karma. It needs us to look at something that we cannot see. That we cannot see. And so in this path, this is a path of listening, of opening, and receiving the intelligence of God. I certainly don't think I know better than that. Chrissy, yeah, I've thought about it. It's a funny good idea. I just need time, and I seem to lack time. So maybe one day we'll see if it's the will of God. So anyways, I'm going to look over here on this screen, see if there's any questions. Okay. Oh, Divine Mother, I am in your hands. Please show me. I've been experiencing a holy wars inside. She wants me to step out and be a beacon of light and truth for others, like a prophet being with resistance, gradually softening. It's been 20 years. The energies are wild. I'm in complete devotion. She is everything. Thanks for listening. This is embarrassing about speaking about this. Do you have any comments? So grateful. Yeah, you know, all of us, like sometimes we get freaked out about being asked to be a beacon of light. By freaked out, I mean we get scared, we get nervous. You know, like in the olden days, like let's say in the 1200s, and the 800s, and the 1600s, you know, if you were a woman, if you're a man, if you were anyone, and you came out, you said, I'm a beacon of light to the world. They might burn you on a stake. They might burn us on a stake back then. But in 2023, like now is a time of expressiveness. And right now there's, you know, millions of people dancing and clowning on that TikTok thing, you know, doing the little jig and this and that. And it's like, okay, like that's one form of expression. But my question to you is there something deeper? Is there something truer? Is there something truer? You know, I was talking with a young man a little bit ago, and he was telling me now, like with being a millennial, there's this expectation that you're immediately supposed to know what you want, and you're supposed to be a millionaire by the time you're 26. I'm like, God, Jesus Christ, have 10 million followers and all this and that. You know, again, like that's one form of expression. But what is a true expression? What does it mean to be a beacon of light? If you're being called to this, are you willing to be humble enough to heed this call, to answer this call? Are you willing to speak the truth? Are you willing to be honest about what wants to move through you? And are you willing to be honest about what's in the way? About what's in the way. When I first started teaching, there was a lot of things in the way, a lot of things in my psychological nature in the way. But the truth kept saying, go forward, go forward, go forward. And through the going forward, it challenged me to clean up my emotional life, challenged me to clean up my relationships. It challenged me to get my act together so I could be a greater conduit. And so I'm going to encourage you, like if there's something beautiful that wants to come forward, let it sing, let it dance, let it love, let it be honest, let it be bright, let it be big, let it be seen, let it be heard. Let it be heard. Our world needs divine expression from people who are mature on the path, people who've done their work. Our world needs it. Our world needs you to come forward, to heal your wounds, to heal your trauma, and to come forward into the light and express your gifts, express your beauty, express your innocence. Our world needs it. Our world needs it. Okay, here's a question. Greg, how do you balance doing psychological healings, putting doing in quotes, with the help of modalities such as IFS, shadow work, etc., and not doing, let God take over? I seem to be a bit confused about the balance of doing and not doing, free will and no free will, etc. Yeah, the basic truth here is when you come into your heart, like your heart does not do love. Your heart does not do healing. If you get out of your head, the head is the one that is the doing, the one thinking about doing, efforting, striving, all that stuff. You just come down into the beauty and the innocence of your heart. And so like if we imagine if we're like doing and thinking and striving, achieving, trying to fix ourselves, like that's one of the spiritual diseases of the self-help movement, is trying to fix ourselves. But if we let go of all that, like, say, psychological training, self-help training, and you just come down into the space of the heart naturally loves without effort. The heart is compassionate without effort. The heart does IFS without effort. IFS is internal family systems. And, you know, like that's whatever, that's a psychological term. You know, the guy who came up with it, Dick Schwartz, you know, great psychologist, teacher, whatever. But all IFS is the energy of love. Like the energy of love looks out and it says, like, is there anything out there that is not feeling included? Come here. Come here and let me hold you. Let me nurture you. Let me embrace you. Let me embrace you. Like that's what love does. Like a mother dog, like a mama dog, she gives birth to a bunch of puppies. She doesn't think I need to love all of them. Her presence. She's not up in her head thinking like, am I a good mom? Am I doing it right? Am I doing it? If that mama, the mama dog, I'm saying that right, mama dog, she gives birth. She just lays there and she makes milk. And all those little puppies just snuggle close to her. And she's just radiating warmth, radiating love, holding them, nurturing them in her presence. In her presence. Like that's IFS. So like all psychological healing, all psychological therapy, it's just talk unless there's a heart in the room. When there's a heart in the room, then something magical happens. Something magical happens. And so instead of doing, and thinking about doing, am I doing it? Is God doing it? And again, like sometimes we're just in our head, and that's what a question like this points to. Is like, I'm in my head. Healing doesn't happen in the head. Healing happens in the heart. Healing is in the realm of love. In the realm of love. Is we have to come into our heart, the direct experience of our heart. We can't think about our heart. We have to come into the direct experience of our heart. And so if we look at coming into the direct experience of our heart, just a very basic question is, how am I feeling right here? How am I feeling? And we can ask a question like, what would love do? Like sometimes we come into our heart, we don't feel love. We feel like garbage. But the thing about love is when there's garbage covering our heart, like heaviness, denseness, sadness, heartache, despair, wounding, whatever it is, love is the willingness just to be with it, just to breathe there, to allow attention to be there. That's what love is. Sometimes love doesn't feel wondrous. It's just a willingness to be there. Again, like that mama dog, she just lays there. She just is with the puppies. She probably feels like crap. She just gave birth. Her body was just ripped open. She's exhausted. But she just stays with the puppies. Stays with them. And so that's what healing is. That's what the work is. Just being with what's here. And at some point, through the willingness to be with what's here, it begins to feel really good. It begins to feel really good. But we don't do it because it feels really good. We do it because it's the truth. It's the truth. And so if we're really having a hard time with this, he wrote, let God take over. If we're having a hard time with this, again, we pray to God. But we pray from our heart. If we pray from our mind, won't do anything. God, it's like you speak Russian to me, I won't know what you're saying. So if you talk to God through your mind, there'll be like no response. And God will like look, I don't do that kind of business. But if you come into the humility of your heart and you ask God for help, then we open the doorway to grace. And God says, okay, good, you're in your heart. Now I can teach you about love. I can open you to love. I can flood you with love. Now, there's a little caveat in here. Johann wrote, what about shadow work? So shadow work is an interesting one. Shadow work often requires some aspect of mindfulness. And I'll say this, I'm going to take it right back to the heart. Shadow work takes some aspect of mindfulness, but it requires a humility and listening in the heart. Like when you're willing to be honest and listen, again, these are all qualities of the heart, qualities of love. Love is willing to listen. Love is willing to be humble. Love is humble. Love does listen. It's not even willing to, it does. It is. It is a space of listening. It is a space of curiosity. That's how shadow work is done. We have to be willing to see, to listen, to hear the things we normally don't hear. That requires a great deal of love. Again, like sometimes shadow work can start with the mind. Like, I'm going to look in places I normally don't look. I'm going to be open to people telling me things about myself that I probably don't want to hear. I've been guarded against. I try to hide. But again, all these are qualities of the heart: the willingness to listen, the willingness to be open, the willingness to receive feedback. And these are things that clear the veils. So Johann, no thinking, just come into your beautiful heart. What you'll find often in our heart, like if our mind has lots of questions, and if our mind is really sophisticated, when we come down to our heart, often there's a feeling of like shakiness. There's a feeling of insecurity. And I encourage you to walk through that doorway of shakiness and insecurity. And begin to get to know the beauty and the resiliency, the strength of your heart. Okay, let's hear from Jay. Jay, are you here? Hi, Jay.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Good
good to see you again. Yeah.
Good to see you too. First off, I wanted to say really appreciated the guidance that you gave me about the solar plexus on Wednesday. I was really mightily struggling with that, and after I kind of took in your counsel, it's brought me a lot of relief. So
Good. I'm glad. Don't ask me what I said, because I have no idea what I said.
yeah, for some reason I thought I was done clearing chakras below my neck, and I just couldn't. I was like this spiritual idiot. I couldn't fathom that it was a chakra opening thing. And you told me to kind of stop struggling with it and stop being so fearful it was going to be ripping me apart. And that really, I just kind of let go of that. And yeah, I was struggling with that for months. So it was really cool.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah. So on to the next one.
Yeah.
So the next thing I'm dealing with is another kind of physical energy thing is the back of the foot into the Achilles, into the calves. The like the energy is just kind of running through there up into the body, and throughout the day it's just kind of running, and it's fine. But when I'm doing the healing work and I'm releasing energy, um, and just at other times during the day when energy is being released, it just kind of shoots up, and that area is just kind of clenching. It just feels like at times just very tense and precarious and weak, and I feel kind of wobbly and just limited in my physicality. I'm doing a number of things to try to keep that place loose, but I'm just wondering if there are some suggestions you might have.
Yeah. So basically, there's a lot of tension in your calves, your hamstrings, like the backside of your legs.
Just the calves and the Achilles and the lower and the back of the foot. Just that's the problem area right now. Yeah.
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 What's the feeling that comes with it?
There's definitely fear for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so have you asked it to be specific about what's this fear about?
Yeah, I mean, it's tied to different parts. One part is the fear of just like something, something giving and just like being immobilized and being writhing in pain and being this kind of worthless husk of flesh that can't take care of itself and being wrong, being
So
bad.
there's a fear that this body's going to stop working and it won't be able to work.
Yeah, it won't be able to take care of itself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And just a fundamental fear of being bad and then being punished for being bad, this bad thing that can't take care of itself.
Yeah.
I think that's one pattern of thought. Yeah, that comes
Yeah.
up.
Okay. Yeah. Let's play with that. So this place inside has a feeling that it's bad, or that it's going to be punished because it can't take care of itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Why don't you close your eyes? Let's feel into that fear. And let's just imagine just beginning with a great deal of love for this part of our body, this part of ourself. Like a great deal of love. And everyone else, like we can all play along. We can find something within us that's struggling. And again, I'm going to say this again. I want you to imagine a great deal of love, like a tremendous amount of love for this part of ourselves. Being sweet and being tender. And like I'm getting the image of like a little kid, like a little boy. And it's like, my God, like this kid, he's not bad. Like, what do you see? You tell me when if you look at him from this immense love of the heart.
See a kid that's terrified.
He's terrified. Like we can see that emotionally. Like that's what's happening in his emotional world. But if you look at him truly from your heart, from a place of compassion, like, is this a bad kid, Jay?
The sense that I get is kind of there's a surface of darkness, but within the child is made of light. A brilliant light.
He's made a light. And I want you to look at his light.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of light is this child made of?
A brilliant white light.
Brilliant white light.
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant white light. So there's a purity to him, right?
Yeah, purity was the second word I was going to say. Yeah.
Yeah. But also, like, the thing I feel too in him is like it's a supreme amount of innocence in this child. Can you see that? Like he's so innocent.
Yeah. Yeah.
So innocent. I want you just to spend a minute just validating the innocence that's here. We can say the brilliance, the purity, the innocence.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is a really good kid, Jay. Like, there's something just so beautiful about it. Like, I'm even going to use the word precious. Like, I'm feeling like a sense of preciousness about him.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you look at, like, if you go back and kind of find that, can you find that darkness still? Or is that darkness still here? Like that you saw on the surface?
I think it's still there, but it's not as pronounced.
Yeah, it's not as pronounced, but let's take a moment and just look like, what's that darkness about? I don't think darkness is the right word, but
I think there's this kind of like lingering belief that some part of my soul is something that's fundamentally evil and wrong and bad, and that it came into this world wrong and bad and evil, and
okay.
that's
So let's feel into that a little more. Like, where's there truth in that? Like, is there a little shred of truth? Like, is there some aspect to you that fell out of alignment, or is this all judgment from others?
I mean, now just as an adult and someone who has kind of non-dual perception into my being, I know what I am is a purity of being, and it's completely innocent
Yeah,
and good.
and so that's the true you, but there's just this thing that's kind of lingering. So we need to meet it on its level. So what's
Yeah,
going on in it?
I think it's just because it was that child was disciplined so harshly for so long. And
Okay, so this is all that the from the parents.
I think a big part of it is that, yeah.
Yeah.
And also, but also cognitively, there's a sense that, okay, this child was technically misbehaving. You know what I mean? So there's like this belief that there is
Okay,
misbehavior.
good, good. Okay, that's what I want to see. So I want you to find the place within you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can close your eyes. I just want you to feel into it. I want you to see that boy. You can just pull up a memory. See that boy misbehaving.
Yeah.
Again, let's look at him with a tremendous amount of love.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say this word, a ridiculous amount of love.
Okay.
So we're seeing this kid misbehaving, and we're just having a ridiculous amount of love for him. Tremendous amount of love, compassion. We see his purity, we see his light, we see his innocence, and we see that he's 2 years old, 8 years old, 14 years old, 20 years old, whatever. And he's human. Can we forgive him?
Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm.
You know, like sometimes a kid, when they grow up in a house and there's way too much discipline, way too much harshness, like that kid starts swallowing all that energy of that harshness and that discipline, that intensity, that repressive force. And then he has to vomit it out at some point and just like some kind of misbehavior. He's like, like he has to rebel in just some wild way. And, like that's just an energy dynamic of like, if let's have some fun. If I'm an authoritarian leader of this country, at some point people are going to, and I'm just like repressing everyone, no one's allowed to do anything. Eventually people are going to start to rebel. In fact, like this happened, I think like last month in China, where they tried to do lockdowns again for COVID, and people were just like, nope. And it was like one of the few times like people in China, they really rebelled. And the government, I think, even was like, okay, like, yeah, this is like yeah, we were crazy to try to do a lockdown again. I don't know if the government really realized that, but I thought I heard something like that just people started freaking out. They're like, we're not doing these crazy lockdowns anymore. We're going to go out, we're going to live our lives. And so it's very important that we see this part of you, like to see the truth of you, which is this innocent goodness, to see it, to honor it, and to really love it, to really see it. And then if there's just like a little shred of us that misbehaved or acted out, can we smile and see, of course we acted out, like that's normal. That's normal. We were just a kid. And so can we forgive him? Like, can we forgive ourselves for being a kid? Can we forgive ourselves for being 12 and having all these emotions and just exploding or acting out every now and then? Can we forgive ourselves? What's important is we don't align with any kind of internalized belief that we're inherently bad or wrong. So the more you can see yourself, to see your purity and your brilliance, your innocence, it's very hard to serve. I'm going to use some of Jesus' words, two masters. It's very hard to see yourself as terrible and also like, oh my God, there's such a brilliance and purity inside. Like it's going to be very hard. So I'm going to invite you to choose one of those two. So unconsciously, we internalize, when parents are too hard on us, we internalize that we're bad and we're wrong. We internalize that thought.
Yeah.
Like their self-hatred or their, a lot of times with parents is parents feel anxious and they feel out of control. And so they just start like attacking a kid as a way of just like their ego trying to control something in reality. because they're scared, they're insecure. And what I'm inviting is for us to do a totally different approach. As we look inside, we look at a thing that potentially scares us, this feeling of badness, and we start to see it. We look at it deeply. We look at it lovingly, and we see, oh my God, like, I'm not bad. I am good. I am pure. I'm brilliant. I'm innocent. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyways, was this helpful, Jay?
It was very helpful, and it's like the relational aspect of hearing you say those things kind of parse out some of the unconscious beliefs I still align with.
Yeah.
The one thing that I'll say is I am doing a lot of this on my own. So like when these things come up, these fears come up, and I kind of track back to where it is, and I'm feeling it in my body, I'm loving and I'm healing it, but it's just there. Is it just a matter of just continue, like being committed to loving and forgiving until however long it takes? Is that it?
I'll ask you a fun one. Like, how often were your parents hard on you?
A lot.
A lot.
For a number of years. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then we have to do this work a lot, a number of years. So it's the same kind of dance. Like the thing too is like when it gets in our physicality, and that's the thing, like with that energy, like say gripping in the Achilles and the calves, like sometimes we repress stuff way deep down in the body. And so it's not even in the chakras anymore. Like we push it. Like my teacher, one of the things that we were learning was, this was real late in the game, was just how much unconscious energy, pain, sadness, heartache, rage, anger, whatever, was repressed below the waist. And when it's repressed below the waist, like again, like in the thighs, the calves, the feet, then it's just cellular memory, which is really dense. And the mind of it isn't so, it's just really unconscious, and it's very habitual. So going back to your question, like, well, how much do I need to do this work? Like for me, I'm a father. It's like how much time do I got to spend loving my kid? It's like, I want to love my kid forever. Like as long as it takes, whenever she comes to me. Like I had 2 sick kids this weekend. My 21-year-old daughter, my 8-year-old daughter, both were sick. And it's like my 21-year-old daughter, I'm not like, she's 21, she'd take care of herself. I don't need to do anything for her. Like, it's like, oh, sweetie, what do you need? Like, just tell me, I'll go to the store, I made her soup and I got her all these, supplements, vitamin C, all this stuff, just whatever you need, I'm here for you. Okay. With my little girl, whatever you need, we're here for you. So like, this is the attitude of unconditional love. And the beautiful thing about it is like when we stop doing this, I used to wear a watch. We stop looking at the watch, the time frame, and we start moving into the realm of unconditional love. Okay. And in fact, like we start to see that I know my phone was on. We start to see that this path is intelligent. Like sometimes God will bring these things forward in us to teach us, to show us, to give us the opportunity to awaken to unconditional love. So we want to, as humans, like we just want to experience love by way of grace. But God says, no, like I'll give you love by the way of grace. Like some of you may have felt that tonight. But for us to move into unconditional love where it becomes permanent within us, God often gives us something that seems unlovable and that takes a long time. And through the path of facing it continuously, then the whole idea of time and how long is it going to take, like all that breaks, like the conditionality of love falls away, and we start to move into a more an unconditional love. Okay. See, this is where like this would be, again, this is where like IFS, if we're going to talk in psychological language, merges into non-dual awakening in the realm of the heart. where it's not just something we're doing to get a result. It's a way of being. It's a way of being. But like when there's something that's been kicked within us so much, so deep, so hard, sometimes it'll show up just as pure, like nerve pain. Because like sometimes we're just in a state of like such tension. And so sometimes your body will just be talking to you with pure nerve pain. And then you begin to open to it, unpack. You see, oh, there's a kid here. There's a kid here that's quite beautiful. And he's kind of dirty too. But let's look at the dirt. Like, is that really dirt? Or is he just, that's him just being a teenager? And he's worthy of our love as a teenager. And he's not really dirty. He's actually developmentally appropriate. Like he's supposed to rebel. He's supposed to act out if people are harassing him. And so you see, he's not dirty. He's a kid, and he's a kid who's beautiful. He's a kid who I love. And then you see that kid, the more you love him, he eventually gives your awareness the gift of innocence. So through loving him fully, awareness becomes more innocent and more unconditional. And so then it's not just such a top-down thing. It's a everything waking up at once kind of dance. And then we see that nirvana and samsara are one. Are one. So anyways, so much love to you, Jay. Good to be with you.
Thank you so much, Craig. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Good to see you. Okay. All right. Looks like oh yeah, let's do some quick questions here at the end. Taylor, if you have it handy, can you say the tentative dates for Kripalu again? Yeah, I feel like I keep saying them. Let's make sure I get them right here. It is July. So like I'm from the South. 17th to the 21st. A 5-day in-person retreat. Please come if you can. I don't even know if they've posted it on their website yet, but those are the dates they got me hammered down for. Okay, there's another question. Hey, Craig, is the main mantra for the Divine Mother Aurobindo Jyoti Tanipadam Karanai? That's the main mantra for Ramalinga Swamigal. Ramalinga Swamigal. And he was a saint from South India who realized the light body. So basically he did the work of Sri Aurobindo, but he did it on individual level, whereas Aurobindo was trying to do it on the collective level. There's a series of South Indian saints, a couple of them, and Ramalinga's in our lineage. He came, me and David were meditating one day, and Ramalinga just showed up in the room, and beautiful experience. And then he kept coming. And so again, these are just great beings who came and sought us out, which is pretty incredible. So it's in the mother lineage, of course, like the Divine Mother is wanting to transform our world into a world of light. So where we're no longer just physical matter, but matter is literally light. That's a topic for a whole nother discussion. Aurobindo Jyoti Tanipadam Karanai. And the spelling of it, we're going to have to work on the spelling of it. I might have to write it down one day or look up how to write it down, because I'll probably butcher it. So much love to you. Please sign up for the March retreat, and please join me. Join us. Let's together collectively as a Sangha take a leap into something greater in these coming months. It'll be a blessing beyond anything we've known. And so let us join in this. Much love to all of you. Good night, everyone. Good night. Good to see you.